This video is sponsored by PCBWay. Stick around to find out how they can be your one-stop shop for custom PCB fabrication and professional 3D printing.
So everyone loved the first round of filament dryers, so we're back at it again with round 2. And this set of 4 is arguably just a little bit more interesting, so make sure you stick around for all of them. And especially if you don't have time for everything, please stick around for the Polydryer, because this might be my favorite product that I've received in the last 12 months. So without further ado, in price order, let's begin. So of course, starting with the lowest filament dryer of the bunch, we have the Creality Space Pi coming in at $69 US. Depending on when you check the website, this dryer might be on sale. Currently it's on sale for $55, and on AliExpress there is some kind of a weird funky double combo unit that can hold 2 spools for sale for $160. Seems like it's triple the price for I don't even know. I don't know. Okay, so unfortunately, there really isn't much to report here. I had higher expectations for this dryer, and of the dryers at the table, this would probably be at the bottom of my list. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't hold value, so here are my thoughts. So the good thing about the Space Pi is that its volume measures in at 42 dB, which in my opinion measures in at that workable range, meaning you can run this dryer and work in the same room and not be disturbed. The Space Pi also has an integrated power supply, so the cord in the back of the machine can unplug and you can stick it and stow it away inside the machine for easy storage. Along with the integrated power supply, that means there's not an actual power brick on the actual cord, so when you plug it into the wall, it's not going to cover up other outlets. So the screen on the Space Pi is actually kind of cool because it looks beautiful, it's got a high pixel density, and it even has a little bit of color on it. When you scroll through the menu system, you have 12 preset filament profiles. All of those are fairly advanced, and you even have nylon. When you go to set the time or change the power, you've got a tap to hold feature, so you just tap either the up or the down arrow and it's just gonna scroll through the numbers, so you don't have to be bothered by tapping over and over and over and over again. And that feature is fantastic, besides the fact that it is incredibly sensitive. And so you might think that that's not gonna be a big deal because you don't need to change temperatures or times due to the fact that there are filament profiles. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. And that's simply because that tap to hold feature is also on the filament profiles. So you basically tap to hold the filament profiles and it just cycles through all of them rapidly. Being able to stop on the profile that you want is seriously very difficult to do. Seriously, of every single filament dryer I've used, and I've probably used 8 to 10 of them, the controls on this machine are the worst out of any machine that I've ever used. So besides all that bad, there actually is something good about the Space Pi, and that is the side profile of this machine is amazing. Loading the filament in this machine is easier than any dryer I've ever used, and once the filament is loaded, you have an amazing side profile which allows you access to see how much filament is left on your spool if you're printing directly from the machine.
And if you don't want to deal with the hassle of drying professional 3D printing filaments, check out PCBWay. Now the great thing about PCBWay is they don't only print standard materials, you can also print PEEK, ASA, or even stainless steel and titanium. And in order to provide the highest quality service prior to printing, PCBWay is actually going to do a full model analysis of the file you upload. That will ensure when your print arrives, it's going to be exactly as you envisioned it. What are you waiting for? If you want to learn more, check the link in the description below. Thank you so much to PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. Now let's go learn about the FixDry NT2.
So pressing right along, we have the FixDry NT2 single spool. Now this dryer is gonna come in at $80, and on sale right now it's $60, although FixDry does regularly have sales going on, so you might even be able to find it lower than that. Now coming from the FixDry machine that I had in my last video, I really did like that machine, but I wasn't expecting it to be as, dare I call it, premium of an experience. And I'm not trying to say that this is a premium dry box, because I definitely don't think it's a premium dry box, but it definitely offers a feel and a user experience that is more elevated than I was expecting. This dryer operates at 35 dB, which I consider to be in the super silent range. Basically what I mean is you could have that dryer on your desk while you're working and you might not even hear it. It's no louder than the bladeless fan that I just purchased, and if you're already working on something, it's just white noise in the background. Honestly, if you had a YouTube video on low volume, it would overpower this thing. The NT2 also has 3 capacitive buttons. It has a menu button, an up button, and a down button. It's incredibly easy to navigate and honestly, felt pretty good to use. The 3 buttons are a menu button, an up arrow, and a down arrow. With the menu button, you can navigate between any of the common settings, and then the up arrow and the down arrow obviously change those settings. So you can go up time, up temperature, down temperature, etc., etc. One thing to note though is that this machine has no preset filament profiles. I really find that kind of a bummer because most people that I know print in at least 2 materials. Even though there are no preset filament profiles on this machine, there are filament profiles that are painted on the outside exterior of the machine, so you don't have to constantly have a lookup sheet on your phone, or there's really no forgetting what temperatures and times to dry materials at. And one thing to note is that this machine does have memory, so if you set it for PETG, then you turn the machine off and turn it back on, it's going to still have those settings that you set for PETG. So overall, I think the NT2 is a very attractive dryer. Honestly, it is one of the more attractive dryers that I've ever owned. And unfortunately though, there is one way they were able to do that, and that is that this machine has no hinges on the side of it. That is definitely a negative in terms of the user experience. The lid on the NT2 operates by physically pulling it off of the machine. There's no hinge, so when it separates, it is 2 individual pieces. It sticks on with a magnet, and getting the magnet separated is actually quite difficult. Once you manage to separate the lid, load your filament, well, of course you need to put the lid back on, and again, it's a little bit of a difficult task because aligning the lid onto the body for some reason doesn't work very well. This hasn't been a serious issue, but it is a little bit of an annoyance and there's nothing you can do about it. Along with the looks on this machine, well, there is a fixed power cord. It can't be removed, so that will detract from the looks, but forget looks, throw that out the window. For me, when my dryers sit, I want to remove the power cord and stow them away on the inside of the dry box. This way that my dryers can stack more cleanly. Well, with this machine, you can't do that, so there is a little bit of a functional disadvantage. For me, the FixDry NT2 really dried just fine. It heated the chamber, filament dried, everything worked all right. But there is something to note on the inside of the chamber where the heat escapes. It is a very, very tiny, narrow area. And well, the chamber is really quite small. There's not a great way to have a fan on the inside. That is one reason why this dryer is so quiet. And with those things said, I do have a little bit of a concern for the overall heating of the machine. Hopefully it heats up very evenly, but honestly, I have no way to test it, and it does concern me a little bit. Okay, so the Polydryer. This was one that wasn't really supposed to be in the video. It kind of showed up to the studio last minute. I squished it in. This thing is absolutely incredible. It is a seriously, truly innovative product. I wish I had more than these 2 units here, and most likely I will be buying more out of my own pocket because I seriously, seriously love this product. So before I discuss price, I really need to kind of explain this product to you. This way it makes sense. But for all intents and purposes, the Polydryer comes in at $80 US. It is a little on the high side in my opinion, but I seriously would still be considering this machine if you're in the market. So for an explanation on the price, this machine actually is a filament dryer and a filament storage all contained into one neat package. The Polydryer is a modular system, meaning the dry case and the dryer are separate units. That's why when you pay $80, you get 1 dry box and 1 dryer. For the price of $30 US, you can buy an individual dry case that still pairs with other dryer boxes. You'll know what I mean in a second. So the bottom of the Polydryer has these little feet, if you will. They are rubber gasketed and they fit into the holes on the bottom of the Polydryer. When you put these feet in here and shove it in and airtight it up, this is now a fully airtight box ready to store your filament on the shelf for as long as you want. And then when you're ready to dry your filament, you would simply remove the feet on the bottom of the box. You would put the dryer machine on, do your drying business, and then you would put the feet back on. So anyway, I already mentioned the price, but let me mention it one more time. For the price of $80 US, you will get a dryer box and a dryer. And then for the price of $30 US, you will get an individual box. So theoretically, you could buy one singular $80 combo and then you could buy 5 other individual boxes and you can use that one dryer with all 5 boxes. So now that I have fully exhausted you guys in a roundabout way of what the Polydryer is, it's time to talk about my thoughts. And the first thing I want to touch on is the build quality, because absolutely everything on this box is very, very high quality. And I'm not just talking about, oh, high quality, but it is just a marketing term. Everything here is actually truly high quality. All of the plastic is very thick. The lid is thick. The box is thick. The hinges are thick. The hinges are going to last thousands and thousands of hinge latches. It's got gaskets on it. It's thick rubber gaskets, not the cheap stuff. These boxes are very durable. The only thing about these boxes, or this combo, if you will, that I'm not overly thrilled about are the buttons on the actual dryer. The buttons are kind of those hard buttons that just, when you click them, they don't sound good, they don't feel good. I'm not sure if those buttons would ever break, but I think if anything in the entire package were to break, it might be those buttons. And well, the operation of the dryer itself is tremendously simple. It has a 3-button design, but it operates slightly differently. There is one button to change the heating mode. You don't set the temperature, you set the heating mode to 1, to 2, or to 3, and then you have a plus and a minus, and those plus and minus buttons are going to change the duration of the heating process. Be that this machine doesn't set drying based on a certain temperature, on the actual dryer is a key that you can use as a lookup table to figure out what filament you have, what mode to set it in, and how long to leave it on that mode. The operation of this machine is also fairly quiet. Again, this machine comes in at 45 dB. I wouldn't choose to have it on while I'm working, but if it was on and I was working, I wouldn't be distracted. And while I was testing these boxes, I found out one very seriously cool fact about the dryers. So as I mentioned before, you have 2 holes for the dryer to connect to the box. One of those holes blows hot air in, and one of those holes sucks hot air out. You might think that seems counterintuitive, but I'm sure it is using that hot air through the fan and just recirculating it back into the box. And you might ask why that is important. That's simply because if you push hot air in one side of the box and use the other side of the box to suck the air, it's going to create some kind of an air vortex, essentially cycling hot air throughout the whole box, keeping the entire internal chamber the exact same temperature. It really is kind of the same theory behind having an internal fan inside the dryer, except the way this machine does it, I think, is a little bit more advanced, and I think is going to be a little bit more effective. So before we get into the bad things about this box, I do have just a couple more things to mention. Be it that these machines are intended to store the filament as well, not only dry it, you do have a hygrometer that is built in, and it is also a battery operated one. This way, when it dies, you can simply remove the old watch batteries and put new ones in. Not only do you have a hygrometer in there, but that hygrometer is built into a desiccant chamber, so you can easily pour your own beads in, and the desiccant chamber is clear because a lot of beads, they change color when they tell you they're saturated. So just look, when the beads are saturated, pop the feet off, stick the dryer on, do a little drying time, put the feet back on, back to storage. And one of the things about this machine that I absolutely love is that the company, Polymaker, has actually designed open source STLs that you can download and print for free and they've already made some, there's a chance that they will make more of them. For the boxes that I have here today, I just simply downloaded the double stacker. Essentially, they're these pieces that slide onto the machine, and then you can simply stack the boxes just like that, and very sturdy, stacks neatly, goes in the closet, much better.
Nice.
So I don't really know how well I'm selling you on these boxes because they're just dryer boxes, but I'm serious. These things are very, very cool. They are very modular. I am incredibly thrilled and happy to have these things in the studio. Polymaker did not sponsor this video. I just really, really love these boxes. Okay, so not everything's perfect. It's time to talk about the negative things, and honestly, I was having to scrape the bottom of the barrel to come up with things that I didn't like about these boxes. So when you start and pause a drying cycle, there is a tremendously annoying buzzer. It's loud. Thankfully, it's really short and it only happens when you click the play and pause button, but it is very annoying and I wish that buzzer didn't exist. I know I already mentioned it, but the buttons on the dryer itself don't feel the most premium. For $80, I would be expecting something that felt a little better. And if something on the box were to break, those buttons would probably be the first to go. And of course, the one that's gonna get me the most is the fact that these machines, the dryers themselves, don't have an internal power supply. So on the actual power cord, there's a massive brick, which means when you plug it into the wall, it's gonna take up multiple spaces. I absolutely hate that, especially when you're dealing with dryer boxes, because at least for me personally, if I'm drying one roll of filament, I'm probably gonna be drying multiple other rolls of filament. And well, those big power bricks take up the whole wall. And so the last one, which might be the most important for me, but also the easiest to rectify, is that because these boxes are designed for storage as well, having some kind of a nameplate on the inside or the outside so I could store, well, the name of whatever filament is inside would be great. Unfortunately, these boxes do not have a nameplate. So right now I have some PETCF in this box, and all I'm gonna do is just cut that label off the box. I'm just gonna drop it in on the side and that'll suffice. But it would be nice if it was designed and integrated into the box in some way. Come on now, for 80 bucks, give us a nameplate. Maybe you could make that one of those open source STLs that you release in the future. Okay, the Sunlu S4. This is a box that so many people have asked me to talk about. Finally, I have one on the channel and, well, I like the box, but it definitely let me down in one very tremendous way. Sunlu sent me this box for free, and honestly, I really wanted one because if you don't know, I have a print farm setup, and typically when I run the print farm, I run the exact same roll of filament on 4 or 5 different printers all at one time. Of course, having a dryer box that can load up 4 rolls at the same time with the same temperature would be great because, well, you turn the machine on and only set the settings one time. And really, that is where this machine shines. And, well, it definitely would shine in that case if it wasn't for the fact that when I put 4 rolls of PETG in here, I set it to the PETG setting, and then it completely and entirely fused 4 brand new rolls of PETG. $100 that went straight to the waste bin for the collectors to pick up on Thursday morning. So with that said, I talked to a few other content creators that do have this box, and I'm not gonna name any names, but other people did tell me that they have thermal issues as well. So you're gonna want to be careful with the filaments that you put in this box. Definitely set the temperature a little lower and possibly leave the filaments in a little less long. This way you don't melt filaments into a brick. So with that out of the way, let me talk about the functional use case and my user experience with the S4. The S4 operates at 46 dB, which I know is only 1 more dB higher than some of the other boxes, but it is a little bit too loud for me, and I would rather not be in the room as it's drying. A good thing to note is that this machine does have 8 ports for filament to come out of, so if you are drying 4 rolls at once and you have 4 printers next to this machine, you could technically print with all 4 rolls. So like the Creality Space Pi, this machine does have an integrated power supply, so the end is just a 2-prong plug. When you plug it into the wall, it does not take up any space. Absolutely wonderful. Oh, and of course, the important thing that I totally forgot to mention, the S4 comes in at $160. If you divide that out per spool, that comes to $40 per spool, which is honestly a fairly cost-effective method of drying filament. That is, if you regularly have 4 spools to dry at one time. And that is because this machine, power consumption-wise, does not make any sense if you're only drying a single roll. It really only makes sense to operate this machine if you're drying 4 rolls at a time. Of course, because this machine is so much bigger, well, the power supply is bigger. It's going to draw more power, so it doesn't make sense to only dry a single roll. So if any of you are familiar with the Sunlu S2, which I know you guys are based off my last video, this has the same great firmware as the Sunlu S2, which definitely is my favorite dryer box because of its user interface. So not only do you have the 6 built-in preset profiles for your most common filament types, but you can of course set the time that you're gonna dry, you can set the temperature you're gonna dry, you can turn some cool LEDs on and off, but the Sunlu S4 comes in with a new feature. It's called Mode 2, and Mode 2 allows you to set the relative humidity that you want the internal chamber to dry to, and then when the chamber reaches that dry amount, it just stops. Of course, I didn't do that, and I probably won't use that, but someone might find it useful, and it's new custom firmware that they're putting on. Upgraded firmware is better firmware. The one thing about the S4 that gets me the most, and while it isn't a nail in the coffin, it is very frustrating and very annoying, is the handles on this machine. In order to actually lift the lids, the handles just suck. They're really bad. The way you actuate them is really bad. They're spring operated and they just don't work very well. I think with a little bit of sticky tape and 5 minutes in CAD software, this could easily be redesigned and fixed. I haven't done it, but it's just something to mention. And honestly, I think that is everything. So guys, if I were to rate the boxes in this video, I would definitely say Polydryer #1 by a very big long shot. I would say the Sunlu S4 is gonna come in at spot 2. Besides the fact that it ruined my rolls of PETG, I just need to be a little more cautious, dry my filaments at a little bit of a lower temperature, and this machine is great. I use this in my print farm setup, and like I said, I regularly need to dry 4 rolls at once, so this just makes my life so much easier. Coming in position 3 is gonna be the FixDry NT2. There really is nothing wrong with this box. I actually quite like it, but it doesn't beat out the S4, at least for my use case. If you can get the NT2 on a pretty good sale, I would definitely recommend purchasing it. You're not going to regret it. Like I already mentioned, unfortunately, the Creality Space Pi has let me down. I probably would not purchase this machine even if you got it at a sale and a pretty good discount. And with that said, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. Guys, if you have any other dryers that you want to see in a video 3 or a round 3 or whatever you want to call it, please drop them in the comments below. So many of you guys were wanting to see the S4. We got the S4 in. I'm here for you guys. So look, if you have any funky dryers by any funky companies, let me know. I will reach out to them and I will see if they want to send them over for review. If you like this video, please drop a like and a subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Now how do I get out of here? I'm kind of trapped. And this is how I'm trying to combat the echo as I record.